I used to cut myself to relieve the stress and anger. I'm just like everybody else. I have addictions, I have complications, I have habits. I have depression, anger, sorrow. I'm just another human being. And it doesn't matter how you look. It matters more upon what you are inside.
The National Institute of Mental Health Statistics indicate that more than 35,000 deaths occur every year due to suicide.
And it's always the questions, what if, maybe if I did something different? Is there something that we missed?
At that moment, that definitive moment when you really think it's hopeless and helpless and there's really nothing one can do, who do you know or what do you know is going to happen tomorrow? There's always a tomorrow.
Before we can understand the problem, we must create awareness, knowledge, and understanding of the issues that plague our nation, our communities, our families, and each other.
I was in such pain that I had my shotgun in my hand. I was going to shoot myself right in the head.
It's about a generation. And this generation didn't get here by themselves.
What I really want to portray is that our health is really about us taking the best care of ourselves so that we can take care of each other.
An eating disorder is a binging and purging process. I was up to taking 400 to 500 laxatives a night.
If we don't go through this life trying to help other people, then we're all going to be alone.
If you're a vet coming home from Afghanistan or Vietnam, be proud of what you've done. And if you've got problems with it, ask.
Kids are our future, and if we cannot take care of them, if we cannot prevent them from dying, I think somehow we all fail.
I'm not praying for fame. I'm not praying for finances. I'm not praying for popularity. I'm not praying for even my own healing. I am praying for the lost. Give them back.
It's the one thing human beings have to be able to do in order to be at peace, is to create a narrative, to create a story.
Just as a prisoner is locked in a cell, so are many people locked in the prison of their own mind because of silent issues.
When I was little, I always felt alone. Like I was never really understood. Like nobody really quite took the time in order to grasp what I was about. And because of which, I never really felt like I had any true friends. I had a huge fascination with going out onto the roof, either to get away or to just find my center. I had no intention for suicide. I just had this vision of death. And that was probably around like 13 years old, and that's when my appreciation for death has started to arise.
Well, first of all, you need to get into that person's head and find out how they're doing. I mean, somebody's not going to walk up to you and say, I'm going to commit suicide. Do you think? You need to know what the warning signals are and try to work with that person or find out what's going on. There needs to be some kind of regular communication with these people.
Suicide just isn't worth it. You can do a lot through life. And life is just life is exactly what you make it. If you sit back on your ass all day, you're just going to waste it. You're going to waste something very beautiful. If you go out for a walk, just at least a walk for like, I don't know, half an hour every day, you're going to look at things like trees, birds chirping. You're going to see beautiful things. And that's what everybody should see in order to start appreciating life, so that they won't have to focus on the darkness or that dark area. People just need somebody to talk to, and everybody needs somebody that they can lean on, and unfortunately not very many people are willing to reach out for that. I tried to scream out for help, but when you scream, it's only silence.
Bob Lenz travels the country every year addressing the tough issues of bullying and suicide prevention, self-image, value, and respect.
So, $10, but what if I take this $10 bill and I verbally abuse it? You good for nothing $10 bill? I wish you were never even printed. You'll never be as good as your older brother, the 20. How much is it worth now? So even though it's been verbally abused, it hasn't lost its value. But what if I physically abuse it? What if I take and say, take that, Hamilton. Dude, you're wearing a wig. You have a scarf around your neck. How much is it worth now? So even though it's been physically and verbally abused, it hasn't lost its. But we're talking about kids who mutilate themselves because it takes away the other pain. We're talking about kids who mom and dad don't even have the time of day for them. We're talking about kids who have been physically and sexually abused. And we're saying, oh, come and do it the old way. It's time to, the waters are so full of issues of drug abuse and addictions that the propeller can't work anymore. But what if I neglect it? What if this $10 bill gets divorced? The parents get divorced, and it becomes a latchkey $10 bill. It spends all its time at home, lonely and neglected. Not even PlayStation 3 will play with it. No one to say, anyways, all right. How much is it worth now? So even though it's been abandoned, it hasn't lost its, okay.
Just as our veterans and soldiers have fought for this country, pushing themselves to the limits in the name of freedom, fighting for something greater than themselves, we as a community of people must come together to combat these mental health issues, to fight for the ones who are suffering and bring back hope, purpose, and love to this great nation.
I used to cut myself to relieve the stress and anger. It wasn't out of as much of a suicidal viewpoint as it was more of a release. It was something about seeing the blood just gush out. It made me feel like I was alive, and it made me feel as though nothing could hurt me, oddly enough. It gave me a false sense of comfort.
Not even just the actual injury, but maybe even the anticipation of the injury, so that their physiological response happens actually maybe even before they've ever injured, because a lot of the injuries that people inflict are pretty surface. These are not often really deep. What about our culture at this time and place makes this an appealing outlet for people? Because I just don't think that it would have had the traction, the social traction 20, 30, 40 years ago.
So physical pain will heal in one way or another. emotional and mental pain will always last, and it just depends upon how much focus you want to put on it. If you're going to let it affect your life, or if you're going to actually deal with it and move on.
I've never felt this loneliness. What can I feel without you?
It was physically apparent that something was going on with me. I'd get depressed that the sun was up. So I'd draw all the shades in the little house I was living in, because I would think about all the things that I used to do as an athlete and I couldn't do anymore. It kind of started to hit home how much I did not want to be alive.
It is believed that anywhere from 5 to 20% of women who develop complications from anorexia will not survive. This makes anorexia one of the most dangerous mental disorders in the world.
This is where I guess people say that people who think about suicide are being very selfish, because they're not thinking of the people that love them. In my mind, and I know a lot of other people who I've talked to who have considered suicide, have tried suicide. I don't think that way. We don't think that way. We think of how life will be just much easier for everyone else, because we are more of a burden and cause too much pain. So it would be easier just not to be here, because then I wouldn't be causing pain to other people.
Because of the love of her mother and the patient guidance from her counselors over the last 25 to 30 years, Sandy has begun to see her own self-worth. Grace fell victim to bulimia as a way of losing weight after a traumatic experience that changed the course of her life.
When you don't eat, or when you make yourself throw up what you've eaten, it's really difficult to just stop, because it's almost like an achievement. A lot of it is pride, and a lot of it is meeting your own standards almost. Like if you haven't eaten for 2 days and you eat a little bit, you're just gonna wanna get rid of it because you've come that far. It's just like any other achievement that you're trying to get to. It was definitely affected by an event that happened. I was raped, and it definitely took a big toll on my mind. When you're violated like that, you kind of start blaming yourself, and I guess the eating disorder was a way to almost punish myself and to also feel better. Well, it's affected my heart. I still sometimes have heart problems from excessive vomiting. I was told that I may not ever be able to have kids. I was also told by my nutritionist that my organs function like a 60-year-old's. I tried keeping my eating disorder a secret for a year or two, and I tried stopping on my own, but without anyone else knowing, it was hard to get support and find comfort in other people. So stopping on my own was almost impossible.
Eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of any mental illness, with the death rate 12 times higher for females 15 to 24 years old.
There's people out there who really care. You forget completely about the people that love you. I'm going off to college to become a dietitian. I want to help people who are struggling with the same thing that I struggled with. I really feel like I'm using it to better myself instead of dwelling on it. You too. It's more of a landmark to kind of see how far I've come You can just look back on it and know that I never have to be there again.
Was there when you needed them? All the ways you've been mistreated, still you stay in isolation. I never thought you'd let me in and tell you, but I'm still afraid to try. I'd show you so you'd understand the reasons why I've always tried. I'll be the one when you're lost, I'm by your side, afraid to run when it feels there's no
Courage. My friend Tom, he lets his dog out every day. But when he let the dog out, there's a rabbit in the yard. What does the dog do when it sees the rabbit? Chase it. The dog just starts chasing this rabbit. He said, but Bob, the weirdest thing happened. The rabbit just sat there. Because at first he's like, it's going to be the dog's lunch. But when it just sat there, it's like, it's going to be a quick lunch. Drive-through. But finally the rabbit took off. But instead of running away from the dog, the rabbit ran straight towards the dog. He said the dog freaked out. The dog never saw this before. All the dog ever saw is I bark, run, rabbit, run, white tail, bite, crunch, eat. This day the rabbit's coming towards the dog. The dog freaks out, puts on his brakes, turns around, and the rabbit starts chasing the dog around the yard. Finally the dog put its tail between his legs, went back up to the porch, and scratched to get in. Tom's like, good watchdog. How does a rabbit act tough? He said, I had to find out why the rabbit had so much courage. He said, I went outside and I said, rabbit, he said, I went, ha! He said, rabbit just sat there. So he went, ha, ha! He said, rabbit just sat there. Now I'm not going to try to get you to believe that that rabbit chased Tom, because that didn't happen. And all my stories are true, but I can't tell you what happened. He's trying to figure out why that rabbit won't run. And all of a sudden he saw why. Behind the rabbit were some bushes. And beneath the bushes were 4 little bunnies. Aww. But why? Why didn't she run? Why did she have courage? The little one's behind her. See, I really do have 5 kids. And I'm trying to tell them they don't need drugs, they don't need alcohol, they don't need the vandalism, they don't need the bullying. But they're already watching me.
Some of the names people would call me would be like ugly, you're a whore, why do you even dress like you do, you're dirty, do you even take a bath, you're ugly, and your mother left you because she never wanted you, because you're so ugly she wouldn't want you to be with you. In lunch class it was the worst because people would like throw food at me and like dump my trays. I would just hide it, and when you hide it, it's worse because it's bottled up in you and you don't really know what to do.
I think listening is key. This child is hurting someone, and I think they need to be heard first.
According to the National Education Association, as many as 160,000 children miss school on any given day because they fear being attacked or ridiculed by a bully.
So then I began to cut myself because that was the best thing to do at the time, what I thought, because I was just thinking, I don't know what to do with the pain that I have. So I just started cutting myself, and at first it wasn't really cut, but it was just, then it got deeper and deeper.
According to the Yale School of Medicine, studies found signs of an apparent connection between bullying, being bullied, and suicide.
If I could talk to a school as like when I get older, go into schools and talk about bullying, I would tell them that think about your actions before you do it, because words hurt and you can't take back what you say to them. And I would just tell them, be nice to each other because you don't want to regret what you do now.
Play your cards and get them wrong, and to them whisper the same old song. You get your heart pulled by a string,
Kayla had so much inner pain from being bullied that it caused her to rip her own hair out in clumps.
Why I wanted to pull my hair out was because I just didn't know what to do with all the problems around me. I didn't know how to take it out, or who to take it out on, so I just took it out on myself.
Suicide rates among 10 to 14-year-olds have grown more than 50% over the past 3 decades.
They wanted to feel good about themselves, and by pointing out other people's flaws, and they called me like fat and ugly and useless. They said that I was like really bad at everything, and there was no point in trying because I wasn't going to do anything good.
Countless victims of bullying are threatened, insulted, teased, or confronted with racist, abusive, or offensive taunts. Others suffer from indirect assaults that include exclusion and false demeaning rumors.
Bullying goes on many different levels. There's outright bullying, and then there's subjective bullying that's kind of under the cover, where adults can't see that. The one thing that we know is that the students see the bullying, the bystanders, and if we can get those bystanders to step in and say, stop it, we're going to do good things.
97% of middle schoolers are bullied while online.
If you're being bullied, don't hesitate to tell anyone because it's not your fault and you're perfect the way you are. There's no need to change yourself because someone else said something.
We should go shopping at the mall. Yeah.
The key word is community, is to make those kids feel like they're part of a community, that they're not alone, they're not suffering alone, that there are other people that can listen and hear their needs.
Champions are born out of adversity. A champion sometimes is someone who's faced with greater obstacles than anybody else in our society, but they have an intense desire to overcome those obstacles and to survive.
He had to do, so we did it. But what could ever make him take such a drastic action? What kind of stimuli could cause such a reaction?
And here I found myself in college, struggling and working 3 jobs and going to school full-time. I received a notice one day that I had to leave the dormitories because I had not paid my dorm fees and I had not paid my tuition. I was faced with this profound state of helplessness. There was only one option that I could think of, and that was to kill myself. And so I wrote a note to the dean of the university, and basically they gave me hope where there wasn't hope. They encouraged me to not be so despondent, and I remember the psychologist talked to me about praying, about being strong, about maintaining hope, and that the future would be better. He reminded me how well I was doing in school and that I would have a much better future. They rescued me.
We don't understand the stresses that kids go through. We don't understand the socioeconomical, the problems that kids go through. We don't understand that once a kid goes in through that stage and if they don't get any help, that is a great loss of asset for the world. To a growing segment of society, dawn is a vehicle of fear. It marks yet another day of hopeless despair, unmitigated pain, and suffocating terror. To these, dawn is not a new beginning, but is instead a potential end. We don't recognize a world where it hurts just to smile, where no place is safe, and where the sense of being completely alone casts its shadow over every day. But for the men and women caught in this never-ending ordeal of isolation and despair, the spiral plunges downward through hopelessness, sadness, emptiness, dread, and then ultimately death. But there is hope that cannot be hidden and the love that fulfills and heals beyond any definition. a chance to be awakened, to remember where we came from, a chance to be free. Gay and lesbian youth are 2 to 3 times more likely to attempt suicide than heterosexual young people.
I'm getting tired and it's cold outside, but you didn't reply. What would you say if you were awake? We're not that far away.
Matt was a young man with such promise of a bright future, but his life ended much too early. The Roth family received a phone call on December 16th that changed their lives forever.
December 16th will be a day in infamy for me and my wife, to get a phone call at 11:20 at night from the police that they found our son's body in the street.
We got to the hospital and it went through emergency, and there was just a lot of confusion. They told us that they did not have a Matthew David Roth.
You hear the words, but they don't really register. You drive to the hospital hoping it's a mistake. They wouldn't tell us what was wrong, but you suspect that you know what you're going to find, but you hope you never find it.
And indeed, they did have a Matthew David Roth. And by the time we got to see him, he was behind a glass window. He laid on a gurney, and he was gone. And you want to reach through the glass, and you want to grab your son, and you want to revive him, and you can't believe it's happening.
Hardest thing to do is to be able to view our son's body in the hospital morgue, knowing that there had to be something beyond what we saw, that God was going to have to do something for us.
At first, I was like, I couldn't really comprehend it. It took a long time for it to actually settle in that he was really gone. I think at moments I kept hoping I would wake up and find out that it was a terrible dream and that he was still there, just a phone call away.
But sometimes it's not easy. Driving down the street past the cemetery, looking at something of Matt's in the house. And it's always the questions, what if? Maybe if I did something different. Is there something that we missed?
Wish I could do it all again now.
His family has chosen to make sure his life counted, as their hope is to save others from an early death by sharing his story.
You fell asleep for just one night. And I thought I lost my mind.
I think the word final it really sheds a lot of light on it, because when someone takes their own life, they're thinking of themselves. They're not thinking about their mom or their dad or their sibling or a friend. They're not thinking about, what if my mom comes in the room after I've, say, hung myself, and she's the one that finds me? How is she going to cope with that the rest of her life?
The pain you can't describe unless you are a parent who's lost a child. We are wired to be able to be buried by our children, not the other way around.
Through our pain and suffering, we must fight to survive, taking responsibility for ourselves and our actions, so that out of the darkness we will rise to our true potential.
As far as an individual veteran, you would have to be a caring person in a sense, and try to become a friend in some kind of way, because it works. It really does. If you really care. If you don't, it shows. It really shows if you don't care. very noticeable.
I prayed every day that I would be able to live and come home. So that was one real strong motivation in my life. Plus, being a Marine, you are highly disciplined, highly motivated, highly professional. It was unique because I've always said this, the guy on your left, the guy on your right, the guy in front of you, the guy behind you, you would die for that person in a heartbeat, no questions asked, and that person would die for you. You didn't have to be the same faith, the same color, the same creed, but we were all brothers. Every one of us that served together, we were all brothers and willing to die for each other. There's an old saying in the Marine Corps, if there's 100 Marines and one dies on a hill maybe 3 miles away, the other 99 would go back and put their life on the line again to bring that one Marine home, that one deceased Marine home. That's true.
What about my family? Oh my God, my kids. Oh, Jesus.
Andrew, hey, we're okay. We gotta go. We gotta go. We gotta go. Hey, come on. Come on.
The experiences of your life make you who you are. It's what drives you, what motivates you, what makes you, you. If we give up, we cut off a checkpoint and the rules of life no longer apply. But if you don't give up, out of your darkness, the mind, body, and soul will become ironclad, bulletproof, with a future of ambition, desire, and unsurpassed possibilities. Take on the challenge of life so that you will discover the exhilaration of a priceless victory. It is time to rise up once again, stand tall on the forefront of the enemy lines, to fight through the fire of the enemy. Rise up and take back what was once stolen, once broken, that was once a shattered mess, and to reclaim what is ours, to never give up, never to retreat, never to compromise, only to fight the impossible fight to save even just one. Without shame, without judgment, without agenda, there is always a choice. And that choice is now up to you. You have seen the truth, and the truth will set you free.
All the words of hate that get you down, that leave you abandoned on the ground. You're made for more than second place. You'll find your way. Just trust in faith. Get up and run, don't be afraid. You're so much more than words they say. Oh, than words they say. The sky turns bright from darkened clouds. You'll be okay, the light has been found. You're so much more than words they say.